The film opens with Margaret and Tyler waiting on a dock for the boat that will take them to a private island, where they will dine at Hawthorne, an extremely exclusive restaurant operated by the best chef in the country. Margaret smokes a cigarette and Tyler tells her not to because it will ruin her palate. She notes the boat's small and he says they only have 12 guests. They make a profit by charging $1,250 a head. When the boat arrives, the two of them are shocked to see how many important people will be traveling with them. There's Lillian, the food critic that discovered the chef, and her editor, Ted, post-prime actor George, with his assistant and girlfriend Felicity, and a trio of important tech business investors, Dave, Soren, and Bryce. The ones that get Margaret's attention is a businessman Richard and his wife Anne. Because Margaret knows Richard and doesn't want him to know she's there, so she tries to stay out of his sight. During the trip, they're already served the first fancy dish, and Tyler gushes over it while he takes a picture. But Margaret isn't impressed. When they finally arrive at the island, and everyone deboards and is greeted by servers and house staff on the deck. The maitre d' calls Margot a different name, so Tyler has to explain there was a change of plans and he came with a different date, making the whole situation pretty awkward. Before dining, Teresa tours for the guests and Elsa shows the guests all the facilities while explaining the restaurant's employees do all the hunting and farming. That's why everyone leaves here. The chef also leaves on the island, but his house is off limits. Afterward, they finally enter the restaurant, where they discover the kitchen is an open area that allows them to watch the cooks work. Elsa tells them all not to photograph the dishes because Chef feels strongly that part of the beauty of his creations is precisely their ephemeral nature. Tyler wants to see the kitchen and he takes Margaret to talk to the sous chef who is making little gels. Tyler asks if he made it with a packagette and brags about all his foodie knowledge. The sous chef knows Tyler by name and says everyone on staff knows all about those who dine with them. He takes his seat and Margaret points out that, while the sous chef knows his name, Tyler never asked for his. Everyone is given a little wine to start out. Chef Slowick appears in the kitchen. He's brooding and intense. He tastes the dish they're about to serve and approves. All the servers then begin to serve the amuse-bouche, which we're told in a title card. As if on a menu, Tyler takes a photo and Margaret points out he's not supposed to. They both try the food and Tyler ravishes it, but Margaret isn't as impressed by the experience. Margaret looks out the glass wall that makes up the restaurant to see the boat that brought them there sailing away. Chef Slowick introduces himself and tells the group over the next few hours they will ingest fat, salt, sugar, protein, bacteria, fungi, various plants and animals, entire ecosystems, at a brisk but fair pace. He asks if they will do him a favor and not to eat, then suggests instead they taste, savor, relish. The group is given the first course, called the island. A title card reads First Course, the island, foraged plants, manila clam, seawater. The plate is made up of various plants from the island placed on rocks from the shore and covered in barely frozen seawater. Tyler points out these are the same clams they saw the guy fishing for earlier, and gets worried when Chef hears him. The chef says it is alright and that the people on this island are not important. The island and the nutrients it provides exist in their most perfect state without being gathered, manipulated, or digested. What happens in that room is meaningless compared to what occurs outside, in the soil and the water and the air. People are just a nanosecond, but nature is timeless, eternal. Tyler begins crying, touched at the dish being beautiful. Margaret is dismissive and doesn't want to eat any of it. She is immediately skeptical of the entire restaurant. The rest of the room revels in it. The food critic Lillian Bloom analyzes the dish. Her husband agrees that they're eating the ocean. The movie star needs guidance from his assistant on how to approach the meal. The three tech bros just loudly talk about tech and then criticize the plate. The plating's a little frou-frou. I've had shellfish just as good at Kashiba. But whatever, now we can say we've been here. We're buying an experience. Elsa watches it all with contempt. Chef stares at Margaret. Tyler notices and wonders if Chef is staring at him. Margaret turns and sees, making eye contact with him. The chef shouts that they're plating in 5 and the entire kitchen shouts back yes, chef, in unison. Next, everyone is given bread service. The chef gives a speech about how bread has existed for 12,000 years and is usually common among the poor. It's just flour and water, and even today, grain represents 65% of all agriculture while fruits and vegetables are only 6%. He then talks about how the group there is not the common man, so tonight they get no bread. Instead, everyone is given shale plates with just the condiments. A title reads Breadless Bread Plate, No Bread, Savory Accompaniments. Everyone is offended by this. It comes with a note explaining that the bread they are not allowed to consume that night is made from a heritage wheat called Red Fife, crafted with a company devoted to preserving heirloom grains. The movie star tries the creams. Lillian Bloom laughs it off as the chef being keenly aware of food as a history of class while still preserving his sense of the delicious. She complains that the emulsion on one of the sauces is broken, while her husband husband concurs. Lillian points out that the chef weaves allegories into his food and the game is trying to get what the overarching theme of the entire meal is going to be. You can't really tell until the last course. Tyler snaps another photo of the food. Margaret doesn't understand why he's so into it. He explains how much he adores food and that it's an art that he appreciates. Back at Lillian's table, she goes on and on about how she makes her own bread and even her own yeast. They are interrupted when Elsa brings a larger container of the broken emulsion that Lillian complained about, courtesy of Chef Slowick. Elsa is called over by the tech bros. They complain that they understand all the conceptual stuff but they would like some bread because Hawthorne is super famous for it. Elsa tells them no. One of the tech bros is offended and says, "You know who we are, right?" Elsa says, "Yes." He reminds her, "We work with Doug Varick." She replies, "No, you work for Mr. Varick." The tech bros insist she brings them bread but she says no and they say wow offended. Elsa leans in and whispers to one, "You will eat less than you desire and more than you deserve." Margaret notices Richard, who is familiar to her, and points out to Richard that Margaret looks like their daughter. The chef comes over and asks Margaret why she isn't eating. She says, "I guess I don't want to fill up early." The chef says that would not be possible. You've precisely designed the portions to account for that. Please eat. The menu makes sense only if you eat. Margaret points out he told them not to eat. He tells her that's not what he meant and she knows it. Margaret tells him, "Thank you, but I'll eat what I want to eat and when I want to eat." Given everyone treats the chef with deference, this is shocking, but the chef half smiles and walks away. We then see an old woman having no food at her table. She simply has a glass of wine. The chef claps and they are told they are going to have the next course, called Memory. He tells the group a memory about growing up and points to the old woman, telling them it is his mother. She used to be quite drunk when he came home from school, and at 7 years old, he arrived and his father was even more drunk. His parents fought and his father wrapped a telephone cord around his mom's neck. To get him to stop, the chef as a child stabbed him in the thigh with kitchen scissors. He never spoke to him again and always wishes he had stabbed him in the throat that evening. The group is then given the first course, Memory, chicken thighs al pastor, smoked pineapple salsa, tortillas. They're all given a small chicken thighs with tiny scissors sticking out of them, along with plates fashioned with tightly coiled telephone cords and bowls of tortillas. The tortillas all have images on them. Lillian notices hers have restaurants that were all closed after she gave bad reviews. The tech bros sees document that expose them for committing fraud. They call Elsa over and ask what they are. She responds, "These are tortillas. Tortillas deliciosas." The tech demands she explain the images and she tells them, "These are tortillas which contain tax records and other documents showing how the company has hidden transactions with shell companies, performed various acts of intellectual theft, and created seemingly countless invoices with fake charges." She's asked how they got them and Elsa says, "I'm sorry, but chef never reveals his recipes." The tech bro threatens to shut the restaurant down by morning and Elsa tells him, "That won't be necessary." The movie star's tortillas are all the poster of a goofy movie he did a long time ago simply for the money, and sees pictures of the two of them, like one with a bandage on Richard's head after having a melanoma removed. In another one, there is a photograph of Richard with a young female escort on a date. He convinces her it was photoshopped. At Tyler's table, the tortillas are pictures of him trying to snap photos of his meals in secret earlier that night. He is worried the chef is mad at him and wonders if he should apologize. Margaret says, "They're the ones who should apologize. We're sending it back." She tries to wave over a server but Tyler snaps at her, saying, "You don't send things back there, you thank them for even letting you in the door." He uses the tortilla to make a taco and raves about how great it is. Margaret is offended he snapped his fingers at her and gets up to leave. She heads to a hallway where an elaborate silver door. Before she can enter, Elsa appears and asks if she needs help. Margaret says she's looking for the ladies' room and is pointed in that direction. Inside the ladies' room, Margaret smokes a cigarette on top of a toilet while looking out a slab. A pair of angel wings are being prepared on the lawn. The chef enters the bathroom and asks Margaret what she's doing there. She says it's the ladies' room. He responds, "I mean here on this island, you little fool. You're not supposed to be here." Margaret was a last-minute replacement and he wants to know if she's one of them or one of us. He leaves, confusing Margaret. When she returns to her table, Margaret tells Tyler she wants to leave. He points out they can't because they're on an island and the boat is gone. The tech bros complain about the tacos being made up of documents that would hold up in court. They discuss having plausible deniability and if they get turned in, they're turning in Varick too, and he won't let that happen. For the fourth course, two servers unroll a tarp across the middle of the floor. It's decorated with baskets and covered with sea fennel and edible flowers. Lillian Bloom and her husband marvel that it's like theater in the Japanese Minamura style. The chef goes to explain the next course and a tech bro demands to know what is going on. but Elsa asks him to take his seat. The chef continues, introducing the staff to his sous chef, Jeremy, who created the next dish, the mess. Jeremy stands at attention beside him while the chef explains that Jeremy graduated from a culinary institute and wrote a heartfelt letter that he wanted to work at Hawthorne. That Jeremy is talented and very good, but he's not great and never will be. He desperate wants my job, my position, my prestige, my status, my talent. Isn't that right, Jeremy? Jeremy responds, yes, chef. Chef tells the group, Jeremy has forsaken everything to try to achieve that. He works 20 hours a day. He has no time for friends or family. His entire life is service and pressure to put out the best food in the world. And even when all goes right, and the food is perfect, and the customers are happy, and the critics are too, there is no way to avoid the mess. The mess you make of your life, of your body, of your health, of your sanity, by giving everything you have to pleasing people you will never know, people whom you increasingly care nothing about. Jeremy, do you like your life, this life you dreamed about? Jeremy responds, no, chef. Chef asks, do you like my life, the life you envy? Crying, Jeremy says, no, chef. Chef tells the group, ladies and gentlemen, your fourth course. Sous chef Jeremy's mess. Chef takes a step back. Jeremy removes a pistol from his waistband and blows his brains out. Everyone begins screaming and panicking. Richard gets up to leave and Elsa asks if anything is wrong. Richard tells her he's leaving. Elsa says, there is no boat to leave on. Richard tells her, then I'll call a helicopter. Elsa says, that will be difficult without phone service. Richard tries to push past two servers holding meat cleavers, and tells him to do what they say, and Richard tells her, I'll handle this. Elsa asks, with which hand will you handle it? Your left or your right? Richard doesn't answer, so she says she will choose and orders the servers to cut off Richard's left ring finger. They do, and Elsa tells the room if anyone tries to leave, they will lose an appendage. The movie star is angry at his assistant for bringing him there. Lillian Bloom is convinced this is a stunt for her benefit, which is why he texted her and invited her personally. Her husband agrees it's performance art, both trying to convince themselves it's not really happening. Elsa asks Margot to join the chef in the kitchen. Tyler asks if he can come but is told no. In the kitchen, Chef tells Margot she's ruining his menu and asks why she's there. He tells her he can tell she's not one of them. She seems to have experience working retail. He asks if she is with us or them. She asks, if I answer you, will I get to live? And the chef says, no, we're all going to die tonight. Do you want to die with those who give, or those who take? He gives her a kitchen timer and says she has 15 minutes to decide. Margot goes back to her table in tears. Tyler is jealous she got a kitchen course, but she slaps him because he won't stop talking about the food. The chef returns and tells everyone, are there any questions about me, or Hawthorne, or why none of us are getting out of here alive tonight? Tyler asks, was that star anise I detected in the stew? Cher confirms it was. The movie star asks why this was happening. The chef says some of them were chosen because of what they've done or were complacent bystanders. He points out that Lillian Bloom's reviews damaged many chefs' livelihoods. A huge container of broken emulsion is then brought out for her. Margot asks, why do you deserve to die? The chef responds, I deserve to die because I've wasted my life. I thought I was an artist, but instead I see I've been slavishly trying to please people who can never be pleased, pointing out his mother as the first of many he's tried to please. He continues, now, at the peak of my powers, all I see is that my food turns instantly to shit inside a rich man's stomach. He points out that Richard and Anne have been there many times. Richard guesses it's been 6 or 7, but Chef Slowick points out it's been 11 times, while most consider themselves blessed for even getting to eat there once. He points out they introduce every dish before it's presented but asks them to name a single thing they ate the last they were there. Richard can't think for anything. Anne whispers cod to him. The chef shouts back, it wasn't cod, you fucking donkey. It was halibut. Rare fucking spotted halibut that we caught just 4 hours before you arrived. He wonders why they even bother coming to the restaurant except that they feel entitled to, because they're rich. The tech bros interject that it's not his restaurant, Doug Varick is the owner. Chef confirms that Doug Varick owns both the restaurant and the island, and thus, since the restaurant is the chef's entire life, Doug Varick owns him. But this is complicated as he currently owns Doug Varick. Through the glass window looking out to the lawn, a light is shown on a man wearing the angel wings we saw earlier, his hands tied behind him, held up by a pulley rope over the sea. Chef mentions Doug had questioned his menu, asked for substitutions, and they used him to get the information printed on the tech boys' tortillas. Doug is slowly dropped into the sea, left to drown. Margot's timer goes off. She's brought back into Chef's office and asked if she made her decision. She reveals that she is an escort, and since Tyler needed a date, he hired her to accompany him. She also notes that she knows Richard, given he once hired her to dress up as his daughter while he jerked off and had her say things as if she was her. The chef thinks she should be with the staff as they're the people who have been subjugated, forgotten, starved. The group is brought outside for their next course. The chef introduces them to his sous chef Catherine, who will present the next dish. Catherine tells the crowd, 2 years ago, Chef Julian Slowick tried to make love with me. I refused his advances. A week later he tried again. Again, I refused. He didn't fire her but instead kept her in the kitchen and refused to look her in the eye or speak directly to her for 8 months, during which time male cooks rose above me in the ranks. Catherine explains she deserved to be treated not as an equal but as a superior, and is better than all the male sous chefs and even Chef Slowick. But a woman chef doesn't challenge, she nourishes, and thus she's been groped, leered at, earned less, all to humiliate her. So she will show them what true humiliation looks like in the next course called humiliation. Catherine takes a small paring knife and stabs it into Chef Slowick's thigh. They then hug. The knife pulled from his thigh. The group is told that the men will be hunted and given a 45-second head start to hide. Some take off running. Others follow shortly after. At 45 seconds, all the male servers run into the woods, trying to find them. The women try the 6th course while sharing a table with Catherine, who explains everyone dies was her idea. Lillian's compliments make her cry, and all the other ladies begin offering compliments as well to keep her happy and asks Margaret if she knows her husband, and Margaret admits she does but Anne doesn't comment on it. Margaret ends up admitting her real name is Erin and she's from Massachusetts. Outside, Tyler spies on them through the window because he hates that he's missing a course. Meanwhile, the staff goes after the men and finds them with no issues, no matter if they went to the forest or the beach. Ted hid in the smokehouse, and for his efforts, he's given a pizza egg. All the men are brought back to the restaurant, and George sarcastically apologizes to Felicity for being a failure, which makes her admit she's been stealing money from him. Meanwhile, one of the tech boys is given a cake, his colleagues having said it was his birthday when they arrived. He blows out the candle. The chef now points out, I'm afraid the menu tonight can't continue as planned until we deal with an unresolved matter. He addresses Tyler, who has been sending him letters for months, expressing how much he is a foodie and interested in Hawthorne. Tyler explains he's trying to eat in as many of the world's best restaurants as he can. The chef explains why Tyler hasn't been shocked by that night's events, as he's been told in advance that everyone was going to die. Tyler had a date, but his girlfriend broke up with him, so he hired Margaret because the restaurant didn't take reservations for just one, never caring about the fact she'd die. Margot is upset by this revelation and attacks Tyler, but the staff quickly pulls them apart. Next, the chef then calls Tyler out and gives him a chef's uniform before pushing him into the kitchen, asking him to cook in front of everyone, even if Tyler doesn't want to. Tyler's cooking is messy, especially since the chef keeps making fun of him for being Mr. Knowledgeable Foodie, meaning the final dish is an absolute disaster. The chef tells Tyler he's why the mystery has been drained from his art and whispers something in his ear that causes Tyler to take off the chef jacket and run in tears. Afterward, the chef takes Margaret aside to ask for a favor, to start preparing dessert. The chef told her they have one savory course left on the menu and must prepare for dessert. But Elsa has been negligent and forgot to assign someone to bring a barrel, and that's supposed to be in the corner. He tells Margaret she will go to the smokehouse to fetch the barrel. Elsa suggests a member of staff should go, but Chef insists Margaret go, to show them once and for all which side she falls on, and whether or not she wants to die with them or us. Margaret is given the key to the smokehouse. On her way out, she sees Tyler hanging by a noose dead in the chef's office. Margaret goes out in the lawn and makes her way into the smokehouse. She quickly finds the barrel but first grabs a scaling knife off the wall. Through the window, she sees the chef's cottage. In the restaurant, the chef returns to the dining area, where George points out that this isn't really fair. The chef explains George is being punished because he saw his movie Dr. Sunshine some years ago and ruined the first day off he had in months. On the other hand, Felicity will die because she graduated from Brown University without any student debt. Meanwhile, Margaret enters the chef's cottage to find it's a replica of the restaurant's kitchen. In this one, there is also a silver door. She crosses to it but it's locked. Elsa appears in the cottage and tells her she is supposed to worry about the customers while the chef worries about the menu. Margaret is making her job difficult. They have a huge scuffle around the cottage with Margaret using the knife she had pillaged. At the end, Elsa is stabbed to death. She tries to explain to Margaret that she didn't neglect to move the barrel, the chef never asked for it. Margaret takes the key off Elsa and enters the silver room to find a secret room with stacks of cookbooks and photos of the chef throughout his career, ending on a newspaper picture of him flipping burgers at a local restaurant, seemingly happier than he is now. Margaret notices a radio on the shelf and calls out for the Coast Guard. When she goes back into the cottage, the chef tells her he used to be a monster, but everything he does today is pure. His chef's hands are so strong that he can touch fire without feeling pain because he can no longer be hurt. At that moment, a boat approaches the island and the chef realizes Margot used the radio. The staff immediately cleans all traces of blood from everyone, and the chef makes a threat if the guests ask for help, then an innocent man will die. Coast Guard Dale enters the restaurant and asks what the problem is, but nobody dares to speak. Then Dale notices George and asks for an autograph because he's a big fan of Dr. Sunshine, so George pretends to give him one. When Dale is about to leave, he discovers the piece of paper actually says "help us" and takes out a gun, ready to defend the guests that now are brave enough to speak. Dale keeps the gun on the chef for a few seconds, only to suddenly turn around and point it at the candle on Margot's table, revealing it's just a lighter shape like a gun. Dale isn't a Coast Guard, he's another member of the chef's staff, and now he can return to the kitchen. The chef's very disappointed in Margot for having betrayed him and declares her to be as bad as the others. Margot remembers what she saw in the house and decides to take a risk. She suddenly claps to get the chef's attention, announcing that she doesn't like his food and that she would like to send it back. The chef falls for Margot's manipulative tactics. As she points out, all the dishes were an intellectual exercise rather than something to enjoy. She's still hungry, so she wants to eat a proper cheeseburger, not some fancy deconstructed poop. For the first time in the day, the chef smiles and accepts to prepare a traditional cheeseburger with fries for $9.95. All the cooks watch with fascination how happy the chef looks preparing a traditional cheeseburger, which he presents to Margot with pride. Margot gives it a bite and approves of the taste, but she also thinks it's too much for her to finish and asks for the rest to go. The chef's still in a trance, so he does as she says, and once Margot has her bag, she leaves a $10 bill and leaves the restaurant. On her way out, Margot hesitates because the others are still in danger, but Anne tells her to go with a gesture while Margot makes it to the harbor and escapes on the boat Dale left behind. The chef reminds everyone it's time to pay. The cost is $12.50 per head under Ono tip system, and everyone gets a bag of goodies that includes one of Doug's fingers. Everyone hands their credit cards and a moment later Sloke announces it's time for dessert. The cooks begin decorating the floor as if it was a plate. Then they put chocolate hats and marshmallow vests on the guests. The chef reminds everyone they represent the ruin of his life, and now they shall be part of it. So the dessert will be the most offensive assault on the human palate, the s'more. This is usually prepared over a fire. Thus, the chef grabs a lump of coal from the oven with his bare hands and announces a cleansing as he throws it on the decoration the cooks left, causing a fire that takes over the restaurant and all the people in it. Meanwhile, Margot stops the boat to finish her cheeseburger while watching the restaurant burn, using the copy of the menu that came with a gift bag to wipe her mouth. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notification and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching, see you in the next one.